Somalia Prime Minister and opposition candidates to meet in Mogadishu over election impasse yet again. Puntland and Jubaland issue fresh ultimatums over Somalia's dialogue. The United Nations says at least 20 die as migrants are thrown into sea off the Djibouti coast. The United States holds meetings with Ethiopian Prime Minister to strengthen humanitarian access in Tigray. And South Sudan suspends airlines after a plane crash. Good afternoon. My name is Amina Hinda, coming to you live from CBATV studios in Hargeisa. This is our midday news. For the third time, Somalia Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and the Union of Somali opposition candidates are meeting in Mogadishu today.
The
meeting, which is a part of the Prime Minister's meetings to find a solution to Somalia's electoral dispute, will focus on the implementation of a recent agreement reached between the opposition and the Somali government in the wake of the 19-year investigation into the incident in February on protesters led by members of the Somali Presidential Candidates Union. The Prime Minister and the Union of Candidates are also expected to discuss the holding of demonstration and the status of the invisible ambassador and the role of the Somali government. In recent meetings with the Union of Candidates, the Prime Minister has reached an agreement that the opposition will hold a peaceful demonstration in Mogadishu, but the candidates who spoke to the media the day before said that President Farmajo is obstructing the process of talks with the government led by Prime Minister Roble.
The federal states of Puntland and Jubaland have yet again issued fresh ultimatums over the much-anticipated pre-election meeting in Mogadishu, this time chiding outgoing President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo of allegedly sabotaging the process. In a lengthy statement, Puntland accused Farmajo of plotting to disrupt discussions between Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and the Union of Presidential Candidates, arguing that the president should be tolerant and embrace the efforts Farmajo, Puntland said, should show a willingness to accept the outcome for the sake of prosperity. The state now wants the United Nations and AMISOM to secure a venue for dialogue which must have enough security to avoid possible attacks. We welcome dialogue between Prime Minister Roble and the Council of Presidential Candidates. This paves the way for an inclusive national election. Therefore, we urge the UN Somalia and AMISOM to arrange a safe venue at the airport to conclude the discussions on obstacles facing the implementation of the September 17th agreement, Puntland President Said Abdullahi Deni said. On the other hand, Jubaland now wants Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble to be given time to conclude talks for the sake of stability in the country. Juba encourages the ongoing dialogue between the opposition and Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble. The state is also ready to attend the pre-election conference in a safe place based on the September 7th agreement, Madobe said on his Twitter account. The two states have been critical of Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, who they accuse of deliberately failing to implement the September pre-election deal, which had been reached by both parties. Among others, the two states want federal troops to be withdrawn from the Gedo region. But amid the pressure, Farmajo has called for another conference, which he wants to be held in Mogadishu on March 4th, involving all stakeholders. However, the Council of Presidential Candidates has dismissed the meeting, arguing that it's one of the strategies by Farmajo to cling to power. And the United Nations has said at least 20 African migrants died after smugglers threw them overboard off the coast of Djibouti.
The International Organization for Migration, IOM, said at least 80 people were thrown off the vessel after the traffickers realized it was overloaded. Their boat had been carrying about 200 migrants, including women and children, according to IOM. The migrants were on their way to Yemen, hoping to get to Saudi Arabia to look for work. The head of IOM, Antonio Vitorino, tweeted about the news. Grim news of more migrant deaths off the coast of Djibouti today. At least 20 migrants drowned and 60 others are in distress after being thrown off a boat by smugglers. Prosecuting traffickers and smugglers who prey on vulnerabilities of migrants must be a priority. Drownings are common off Djibouti as migrants from Ethiopia and Somalia try to escape war and poverty at home to find work in the Gulf.
Rwanda on Wednesday became the first African country to receive the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine, with around 100,000 doses delivered in what the pharmaceutical giant hailed as a milestone for the African continent. The East African country received nearly 103,000 doses of the vaccine at the capital Kigali through the UN-led COVAX initiative, which aims to provide equitable access to COVID-19 jabs for poorer countries. Pfizer said the first shipment to Africa of its vaccine represented an important milestone for the region, for Rwanda, and for the global health partners working tirelessly to fight this pandemic. Earlier in the day, Rwanda took separate possession of 240,000 doses of the AstraZeneca jab, its first delivery under the COVAX facility. Vaccinations will begin on Friday, with a country of 12 million planning to inoculate 30% of its population this year and 60% by the end of 2022. The ministry said the vaccine shipment should protect about 171,000 frontline personnel, as well as other priority citizens, such as those over 65 with underlying health conditions. In February, Rwanda became the first country in East Africa to begin vaccinating against the disease, targeting high-risk groups such as healthcare workers after acquiring around 1,000 doses of the Moderna jab. It imposed some of the strictest anti-coronavirus measures on the continent, including one of Africa's first total shutdowns in March of 2020, and put capital Kigali back under full lockdown in January after a surge in cases. The Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, met with US Senator Jem Inhofe to discuss the situation in the Tigray region. Mr. Inhofe briefed the Prime Minister on his government's commitment to strengthening humanitarian efforts in the region.
Over the past few months,
the Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia met with US Senator Jem Inhofe to discuss the situation in the Tigray region and briefed the MP on his government's commitment to strengthening humanitarian efforts in the Tigray region. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed also briefed the lawmaker on fighting in the Tigray region by his forces, saying they were currently working to restore order in the region and provide assistance to people suffering from that war. For his part, Senator Jem Inhofe said the opening of aid routes in Tigray region will play an important role in stabilizing the region and strengthening a peace and social cohesion, noting that he encouraged the Prime Minister to take a new route. Strengthen access to aid the region, especially international agencies. It was early reported that the UN Security Council will meet Thursday to discuss the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Since the launch in early November of the Ethiopian military operation in Tigray, the Security Council has held few meetings on the issue, undermined by divisions between the African members, who see it as an internal matter, and Western members for whom the humanitarian situation had an influx of refugees in neighboring countries require the involvement of the body charged with world peace and security. The UN announced it had reached several agreements with the Ethiopian authorities guaranteeing in principle full access to the entire country. These agreements have yet to be realized. NGOs have called since the start of 2021 for the Security Council to hold a public session, followed by the resolution called for an end to the obstruction of aid and an immediate investigation into alleged war crimes committed in Ethiopia's dissident region.
The foreign ministers of Sudan and Egypt met at a joint news conference in Cairo to discuss bilateral cooperation, as well as urgency of reaching a legal agreement on the filing and operating of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Nile River, which has been causing controversy in the region.
Sameh Shoukry, Egypt foreign minister, issued the following statement on his Twitter page that there can be no endless negotiations or negotiations to come, with one side continuing to take unilateral measures. Otherwise, the matter becomes a mess and leads to nothing but imposing the will on two parties and exposing their people to existential risk. The ministers expressed concern about the stalled negotiations, stressing the importance of water security and preserving the water rights of all three countries as they call on Ethiopia to show goodwill. Mariam Sadiq Al-Mahdi, the Sudanese foreign minister, reiterated the necessity to conclude ongoing talks.
We affirm the need for the African Union Organization to lead a four-way initiative in order to be able to resume negotiations. But this return cannot be expected to last indefinitely.
The officials agreed on the formation of an international quartet negotiation mechanism made up of the European Union, the United Nations, the United States, and the African Union. The AU is to function as the sponsor, and as the organization's current chair, the Democratic Republic of Congo is to manage all negotiation activities.
Still in the Horn, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has ordered the suspension of the operations of a local airline whose plane crashed on Tuesday, killing all on board.
The small plane operated by South Sudan Supreme Airlines Aviation Company crashed in the eastern Jonglei state shortly after takeoff at Pieri airstrip. The dead included a Kenyan pilot, his South Sudanese co-pilot and 7 women passengers. In a statement, President Kiir said the suspension of the airline was a temporary measure to deal with these avoidable air accidents before laws governing civil aviation are strengthened via legislative means. This measure is necessary for these institutions to ascertain airworthiness of the remaining South Sudan Supreme planes. It is also a necessary step to restoring public confidence in air travel in the country, President Kiir said. The airline is owned by Aye Tuang Aye, the president of South Sudan General Business Committee and Employers Federation.
The General Secretary of the Tanzania Episcopal Conference, the TEC, Father Charles Kitima, earlier today announced that more than 25 priests, 60 nuns and 2 elders of the laity died within 2 months of various causes, including respiratory issues. This comes amid reports that death has robbed the country of at least 10 prominent people. Father Kitima made the remarks while addressing the media on various issues, especially the COVID-19 pandemic, and urged church members to continue taking precautions against the disease in accordance with health ministry guidelines. In a statement, Mr. Kitima said deaths occurred between mid-December and February in different parts of the country. He said the TEC President Gervas Nyaisonga had already distributed guidelines to bishops of various dioceses on measures to protect themselves against COVID while providing services. This comes amid reports that death has robbed the country of at least 10 prominent people in a span of 3 weeks. They include Chief Secretary John Kijazi, Zanzibar's first Vice President, and the Bank of Tanzania Governor, among other people. The cause of death of the Vice President, Mr. Hamad, was not immediately established, but he was earlier hospitalized after testing positive for COVID-19. While speaking at Ambassador Kijazi's funeral last month, President John Magufuli appeared to acknowledge that COVID-19 was circulating in Tanzania. He had previously downplayed the virus and said that prayer had rid the country of the pandemic. However, while he seemed to accept that the disease was in the country, he ruled out imposing a lockdown and encouraged clerics to continue interceding for the nation to defeat the global pandemic. Arab foreign ministers on Wednesday reappointed a veteran Egyptian diplomat as the Secretary General of the Cairo-based Arab League.
Arab Foreign Minister on Wednesday reappointed as a veteran Egyptian diplomat as the Secretary General of the Cairo-based Arab League. Ahmed Abul Gheit, a former ambassador to the United Nations and Egypt's last foreign minister, and the ousted President Hosni Mubarak, won the backing of the Arab foreign ministers meeting in the Egyptian capital. During the talks, Abul Gheit expresses optimism in making progress to resolve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict during his new 5-year contract. A new opportunity looms today with the new American administration taking over the levers of power to correct its track and launch a real peace process based on international law, a framework, and a lasting solution, and not just negotiating for the purpose of negotiation, Abul Gheit said. In January, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi announced that Cairo would nominate Abul Gheit for second term as the chief of the 22-member bloc. The 78-year-old was the only nominee for the post and is as a long-time held protocol that Egypt, as the host of the Arab League, traditionally nominates the league's chief. Abul Gheit has been known to be a pragmatic diplomat with strong enmity for political faction like the Muslim Brotherhood, who has been the vocal against Turkey and Iran, 2 regional powers with major influences in the Arab world. He has also been critical of the 2011 uprising that engulfed the region and led to the overthrow of long-time autocrat rulers, but also sparked 3 civil wars.
Senegal's main opposition leader Ousmane Sonko is in the news again, this time being arrested on charges of disturbing public order after hundreds of his supporters clashed with police while he was heading to court to face rape charges that he denies.
Senegal's main opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has been arrested on charges of disturbing the public order after hundreds of his supporters clashed with police while he was heading to the court to face rape charges he denies. Sonko's lawyers said he was also arrested for participating in unauthorized demonstrations. Hundreds of his supporters followed his motorcade to the court, sounding car horns and chanting. Some of them then hurled stones at the officers who fired back with tear gas. Sonko who was placed third in the 2019 elections, was accused of rape last month by an employee at a beauty salon. He was summoned by a judge to appear in court for questioning on Wednesday after his parliamentary immunity was lifted last week. Sonko has been a strong opponent of President Macky Sall since 2012, and he and his supporters have said the charges are politically motivated.
What is going on is nothing more than a project to wipe out our democracy. Every time a dictatorship has been allowed to settle and prosper, it is because an overwhelming majority of the people abdicated before a tiny minority, which played on their fears. Nothing can resist the will and courage of people.
On Friday, Senegal's parliament voted to strip Sonko of his immunity so the rape prosecution could proceed. He, however, accused the president of conspiring to remove him ahead of the 2024 elections. Kamil Sadiq, CBATV.
As part of efforts to ensure effective sharing and distribution of COVID-19 vaccine, the Nigerian Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Hanire, has convened a meeting with commissioners for health across 36 states of the Federation.
It is my pleasure to address eminent stakeholders at this event.
As part of efforts to ensure effective sharing and distribution of COVID-19 vaccine, the Nigerian Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Nahire, has convened a meeting with commissioners of health across the 36 states of the Federation. The commissioners across the states are the chief health officials who have played key roles in their respective states in containing the spread of the virus since Nigeria recorded its index case last year. The essence of the meeting is to discuss on modalities to adopt to transport, distribute and vaccinate the frontline and other essential workers and the Nigerian population. In Lagos, the state government says it is waiting its share of COVID-19 vaccine, adding that it has prepared facilities to store the doses. Meanwhile, as preparations are in top gear for mass vaccination in Nigeria, the director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Mr. Faisal Shuaib, has said COVID-19 cannot change the DNA of recipients. There have been allegations that chips have been implanted into COVID-19 vaccines. He said it is the responsibility of health workers and scientists to address any concerns that Nigeria may have regarding the vaccine. Nigeria on Tuesday received 3.94 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, becoming the third African country to benefit from the COVAX facility after Ghana and Ivory Coast. COVAX, an initiative co-led by the Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, and the World Health Organization, WHO, seeks to ensure equitable access to a COVID-19 vaccine by dividing about 2 billion doses across 92 low and middle-income countries. As of today, Nigeria has recorded over 156,000 COVID-19 cases, 1,939 fatalities, and has so far discharged 135,812 patients. Kamil Sadiq, CBATV, Nigeria.
That's all you have for me for now. Thank you for staying tuned. Goodbye.